Alright, so it's time for another one of Drew's book reviews. Today's review, Animal Farm by George Orwell. So this is a very short story, about 90 pages long, so I managed to finish it in one setting, which I rarely do when I'm reading my books. So it's a pretty quick read. Essentially, the concept behind this story is that the animals are tired of their oppression by the farmers, being used and rationed on their food supply and used only to be slaughtered for food later in their life, and just essentially being enslaved by mankind to do their bidding. And so they rebel, and there's this uprising of the animals. And they overthrow the farmer and drive them out in an effort to establish their own society. But here's the thing with this book. The actual rebellion against the farmers is not the story. The story is how this animal farm develops in terms of its own society and the progression towards a rebellion in the cause of freedom to tyranny and oppression as the animals divide into different classes of individuals, people, different levels or classifications of animals, which divides into the pigs, which control the whole system. They are the ones in charge. You have the sheep that are constantly agreeing with literally everything and just going with it, and never stop to question what they're told. To the working class animals who struggle day in and day out for their own well-being to survive in this world that's controlled by the elite pigs or ruling class. And it's just really interesting to see how the whole story kind of goes into this whole concept of explaining how society develops and heads towards tyranny and oppression and comes divided in terms of class, and the different ways in which the working class is manipulated for the benefit of the ruling class. And as we go through the story and we learn more about it, and we have the pig leader by the name of Napoleon, another pig by the name of Snowball, who have this conflict and rivalry, and how the political elite will manipulate events to their favor in order to get rid of their political rivals. Well, eventually, Napoleon, the lead pig, the leader of this society, he manages to gain control of society and drive all of his enemies out, and essentially he takes control of the government. It's no longer a democracy. He decides he's in charge and he's going to make all the decisions from here on out. And he has this elite force of security and bodyguards that ensure that his rule and his law is enforced. So naturally, this starts to lead to more of a tyrannical reign. And as the discontent grows amongst the population of animals on this farm, and they are becoming more unhappy with their circumstances and life, what happens is Napoleon, he essentially orchestrates a series of, I guess, what you could call terrorist attacks on the farm, where ruin is happening and chaos and damage to property, disruption of production is all happening. And he uses his rival, which has since fled and never to be seen from since. He says, oh, well, my rival, he's coming in, that's Snowball, he's coming in, and he's terrorizing you, and only I can stop you, and only I can protect you. Despite the fact that he's the one orchestrating all this crime and chaos in order to trump up support for his protection, his elite powers. And in addition to this, he does this by rounding up those sympathizers with his enemies, or those who are most unhappy and discontent with the society in which he's created. So he starts rounding them up and executing them and forcing and coercing confessions of conspiracy against the government. And as the working class continues to get poorer and poorer, he continues to get richer and richer off of this working class of animals, while simultaneously executing those who would dare challenge his rule. And by the end of the book, we see that you really can't tell the difference between this ruling pig and the oppressors and tyrants that they overthrew to begin with. And it really is just this really fascinating delve into the idea of giving up power, control, and authority, and how governments and how society can evolve or devolve into such a system. And I think works really well as an allegory for explaining and taking a look at the realities that all life, all creatures, the animals being representative of ourselves, of course, I think makes a very strong point of that. That we all want peace, we all want security, we all want prosperity, and that we will immediately turn to those who promise to deliver such things to us. And little by little, society gives up its basic freedoms, its basic rights, in exchange for that security which they so desperately crave. And I think it really serves to highlight that very well and very effectively. And that if we're not careful, and if we continue to uphold, support, and promote these ideals, and we continue to believe what we're being told by our elite ruling class, that we too run the risk of becoming subjects and enslaved, all the while believing we're free. And that simply is not true. And this is just a really fascinating, well-written story about how that can happen. And I think it's definitely worth your read. Just awesome. Absolutely loved it. I love that I was able to just sit down and read it in one sitting, and I definitely recommend you pick it up and read it yourself, because it is well worth it. George Orwell is an amazing writer, and I can't wait to read 1984, which is coming up next. So do not hesitate to pick this up. You've got to read it. Just an amazing book, a great allegory, and well worth your time to read and contemplate. I mean, this book really isn't about animals on a farm. It's about us. It's about our human culture, our society, and how quickly and easily we can be manipulated into giving up our freedoms and liberties for the sake of security. And I think it serves as a great warning and just a great read. So definitely check out. And of course, 1984. It's a 2-in-1 book. I'll be reading 1984 next. So stay tuned for that review. Really look forward to it. That 1984 is a classic. I don't know why it's taken so long for me to get to it. But yeah, Animal Farm. Check it out. Read it. And of course, don't forget to comment and subscribe below. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the review. So thanks again. Of course, links to all my sites will be in the description below: Facebook, Twitter, my blog site on WordPress as well. Thank you so much for taking time to view the video. Don't forget to share and comment below. Thanks so much, and you have a great day.